Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. If you love creepy tales and bone-chilling mysteries, make sure to subscribe and join our haunted community. Hit the thumbs up if you're ready for tonight's scare, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you're never left alone in the dark. Let's dive into the horror. I never thought Christmas morning would turn into the most terrifying day of my life. It's been 5 years since it happened, and I've never shared this with anyone until now. Maybe speaking it out loud will finally help me sleep again. It started like any other Christmas, the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven, the soft glow of the tree lights, and the sound of my kids whispering about what Santa might have brought. My wife, Maria, was in the kitchen humming a carol. Everything felt perfect, you know? But then, just as I was about to wake the kids, I noticed something odd. There was a small box on the porch that hadn't been there the night before. It was plain. No bow, no tag, just brown paper. I figured maybe it was a last-minute delivery. I brought it inside, and as I set it on the counter, Maria asked, "Who's it from?" "No idea," I said. "There's no address." I should have stopped right there, but curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a knife and sliced it open. Inside was an old-fashioned tape recorder, the kind you'd see in the 80s, chunky and scratched up. Sitting on top was a sticky note with 2 words, "Play me." Maria laughed nervously. "Is this one of your friends messing with us?" "I don't think so," I said, but I couldn't shake this weird feeling creeping up my spine. Still, I pressed the button. The tape hissed, and then a distorted voice started speaking. "Good morning, James. Merry Christmas. I've been watching your family all year. You're such a perfect little unit. Maria, Liam, Chloe, and you. Always so happy. Always so unaware." Maria froze, her face pale. "James, what is this?" "I don't know," I whispered, my heart racing. The voice continued. "You probably think this is a prank. It's not. I've left you a little present, hidden somewhere in your house. A game, if you will. Find it before noon, or someone you love won't see another Christmas." I slammed the stop button. The silence that followed was deafening. Maria was shaking, and the kids were starting to come downstairs. I forced a smile and told them to stay in the living room while we finished wrapping some gifts. The next 2 hours were a nightmare. We tore the house apart looking for whatever the hell this present was. Closets, cabinets, under the beds, even the attic. Nothing. But the entire time I felt like we were being watched, like there were eyes on us that we couldn't see. At 11:45, I was in the basement, frantically searching through old boxes, when Maria screamed upstairs. I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time and found her in the kitchen, staring at the window. Someone had written on the frost-covered glass with a finger, "Time's almost up. We need to call the police," Maria said, her voice trembling. "And tell them what?" I snapped. "That a tape recorder threatened us?" But even as I said it, I knew she was right. This wasn't a joke. I pulled out my phone, but before I could dial, the power went out. The lights, the tree, the oven, everything. The house plunged into an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of Liam and Chloe crying in the other room. I grabbed a flashlight and headed for the breaker box, but when I opened it, there was a Polaroid taped to the inside. It was a picture of us from that morning, sitting around the tree, but in the background, just barely visible through the window, was a figure. Tall, thin, wearing a dark hoodie. My blood ran cold. Whoever this was, they'd been inside our yard, maybe even inside the house. I'd never felt so helpless. I ran back to the kitchen where Maria was trying to keep the kids calm. And that's when I noticed the clock on the microwave, the only thing still glowing in the dark. It was 11:59. "It's almost noon," Maria whispered. "What do we do?" I didn't have an answer. All I could do was hold my family close and pray. The clock ticked to 12 o'clock, and for a moment nothing happened. Then we heard it, a single knock at the front door. I crept to the door, heart pounding, and peeked through the peephole. The porch was empty, but when I opened the door, there was another box sitting there. Smaller this time. My hands were shaking as I picked it up and brought it inside. Maria begged me not to open it, but I had to know. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of us again, but this time it was taken from inside the house. The angle was high, like from the top of the stairs. In the corner of the photo was a timestamp, 2:37 a.m. We'd all been asleep. I didn't sleep for days after that. We installed cameras, changed the locks, even moved a year later. But whoever it was never came back. And yet, every Christmas morning, I can't help but feel those eyes on us again, just out of sight, watching. Christmas Day was supposed to be perfect last year. My parents had been hounding me for months to visit, so I finally caved. It was a big deal for them. All the traditions, the eggnog, the overcooked turkey, the ridiculous matching pajamas they made us wear for the family photo. I wasn't excited, but I went along with it. I should have stayed home. The drive to their place was uneventful, just miles of snowy countryside and static on the radio. By the time I arrived, the house was glowing with Christmas lights, a wreath on the door, the works. Inside, my mom was buzzing around the kitchen, my dad was already into the bourbon, and my sister was trying to keep her kids from breaking every ornament on the tree, typical Christmas chaos. Dinner was the same as always, way too much food, Dad telling the same jokes he tells every year, and the kids complaining about having to eat vegetables. Afterward, we settled into the living room, the fire crackling, presents stacked under the tree. It was nice. Normal, until the doorbell rang. We all froze. It was already dark out, and my parents live in the middle of nowhere. No neighbors, no carolers, no reason for anyone to be out there. My dad got up, muttering about the weather, and opened the door. A man was standing on the porch. He wasn't dressed for the cold, no coat, no hat, just a thin sweater and jeans. His face was pale, and he had this weird, almost blank expression, like he wasn't fully there. "Can I help you?" my dad asked, his tone cautious. The man didn't answer right away. He just stood there, staring past my dad into the house. Finally, he said, "It's cold. Can I come in?" My mom's instinct kicked in immediately. "Oh, you poor thing, of course, come in." I wanted to stop her. Something about him didn't feel right. But before I could say anything, he stepped inside. He didn't smile, didn't thank her. Just stood there, snow melting off his boots onto the rug. "Are you lost?" my dad asked. "Need to call someone." The man shook his head. "Number, I'm just passing through." Passing through, in the middle of nowhere, in a snowstorm. It didn't make sense, but my mom was already fussing over him, offering hot cocoa and a seat by the fire. He took the cocoa but didn't sit down. Just stood there holding the mug, staring at the tree. "Pretty decorations," he said finally. His voice was flat, almost mechanical. "You put a lot of effort into this." "Thanks," my mom said, clearly trying to lighten the mood. "We do it every year." He nodded slowly, then looked at me. "Family is important." There was something in his tone that sent a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile but didn't say anything. He stayed for about half an hour, barely saying a word. My mom kept trying to make conversation, but his answers were short and vague. He wouldn't tell us where he was from, where he was going, or why he was out in the snow with no coat. The whole time he kept looking around the room, his eyes lingering on each of us a little too long. Finally, my dad stood up. "Well, it's getting late. Can we call someone to come get you?" The man smiled for the first time. It wasn't a warm smile. It was sharp, predatory. "No," he said. "I'll be going now." He set the untouched cocoa on the table and walked to the door. My dad opened it for him, and he stepped out into the snow without another word. We watched as he walked down the driveway and disappeared into the dark. "Well, that was weird," my sister said, breaking the silence. My mom shook her head. "Poor man. Probably homeless. I hope he'll be okay." Something told me he wasn't homeless. He didn't look desperate. He looked deliberate, like he'd come here for a reason. We tried to move on, but the mood was off for the rest of the night. Even the kids seemed subdued. Eventually, we all went to bed, the snow still falling outside. I woke up around 3 a.m. to a strange sound, a soft scratching noise like something was brushing against the window. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened. It stopped. I told myself it was just a tree branch in the wind and tried to go back to sleep. The next morning, we found footprints in the snow. They circled the house, stopping at each window. At first, we thought it was the man from the night before. But the prints, they weren't normal. They were too long, with strange claw-like impressions at the toes. They didn't look human. We called the police, but they didn't take us seriously, said it was probably an animal. But I've never seen an animal leave prints like that. That was the last Christmas I spent at my parents' house. They still don't believe me when I say something was off about that man. But I know what I felt that night. And I'll never forget the way he smiled at me, like he knew something I didn't. Christmas has always been my favorite holiday. I love the lights, the music, the food, and the feeling of everyone coming together. But last year, Christmas changed for me forever, and not in a good way. It's the kind of story I've never told anyone before, but I feel like I need to get it out there. Maybe it'll make someone think twice about letting strangers into their lives. It started on Christmas morning. My girlfriend Emma and I had rented a cozy little cabin in the mountains. We wanted a quiet holiday away from the city, just the two of us. The snow was falling lightly, the fire was crackling, and everything felt perfect. We'd planned a lazy day of opening presents, cooking a big dinner, and maybe watching a Christmas movie later. Around noon, we were sitting on the couch when there was a knock at the door. It startled both of us because the cabin was pretty remote. The nearest neighbor was miles away, and we hadn't seen a single car on the road since we got there. I got up and opened the door. A man was standing there, mid-30s maybe, dressed in a Santa suit. The thing is, it wasn't one of those clean, store-bought costumes. It was dirty, frayed at the edges, and stained with something dark. "Merry Christmas," he said, his voice overly cheerful. His smile didn't reach his eyes. They were pale and watery, darting around like he was trying to take in everything at once. Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Can I help you?" He held up a large, tattered sack. "I'm spreading Christmas cheer to everyone in the area. Mind if I come in and warm up? It's awfully cold out here." Emma came up behind me, looking over my shoulder. "Who is it?" she asked. "Just someone. Spreading Christmas cheer," I said, my voice trailing off. The man's smile widened. "That's right. Don't worry, I won't stay long. Just long enough to share the spirit of the season." Emma gave me a look that said, "Don't you dare let him in." I agreed with her, but I also didn't want to provoke this guy. There was something off about him, the kind of off that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. "Sorry," I said. "We're in the middle of something right now, but thanks for stopping by." The man's smile faltered for a split second, and his eyes narrowed. Then, just as quickly, the grin was back. "Of course, wouldn't want to intrude. But before I go, I have something for you." He reached into his sack and pulled out 2 small packages, wrapped in newspaper and tied with string. "Merry Christmas," he said, thrusting them toward me. "That's really not necessary," I started, but he cut me off. "I insist," he said, his tone firm. "Go on, take them." I didn't want to, but something told me it was better not to argue. I took the packages and forced a smile. "Thanks." "You're very welcome," he said. "Enjoy your day." And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the trees. I closed the door and locked it, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. "What the hell was that?" Emma asked. "No idea," I said, setting the packages on the coffee table. "But I'm glad he's gone." We both sat back down, staring at the packages like they might explode. Finally, Emma said, "Should we open them?" I didn't want to, but curiosity got the better of me. I untied the string on the first package and unwrapped the newspaper. Inside was a small, crude carving of a person. It looked like it had been whittled from a piece of driftwood, rough and splintered. The face was a series of jagged cuts, and the body was bent at an unnatural angle. "That's creepy," Emma said, her voice uneasy. I opened the second package. It was another carving, almost identical to the first, but this one had a smear of red paint on its head. "What the hell?" I muttered. "Why would he give us these?" Emma was already reaching for her phone. "I'm calling the rental company. They need to know about this." She called and explained what had happened, but the woman on the other end didn't seem concerned. She said the man was probably just a local trying to spread holiday cheer in his own way. "That's not normal," Emma said after hanging up. "This isn't normal." I agreed, but there wasn't much we could do. We decided to put the carvings back in the newspaper and forget about them. We went about our day trying to shake the uneasy feeling. But as the afternoon turned to evening, things got worse. It started with the lights. They flickered a few times before going out completely. The fire in the hearth sputtered and died, plunging the cabin into darkness. We tried to use our phones for light, but neither of them would turn on. Even my watch had stopped. "This doesn't make sense," Emma said, her voice trembling. I went to check the breaker box, but it was empty, like the actual switches were missing. That's when I noticed the sound. A faint, rhythmic tapping coming from the front door. Emma grabbed my arm. "Don't open it," she whispered. I didn't plan to. Instead, I went to the window and peeked out. The man in the Santa suit was back, standing perfectly still in the snow. He was holding the sack, but it looked heavier now, sagging with whatever was inside. His head was tilted slightly, and he was staring directly at the window. "He's back," I said, barely able to get the words out. Emma didn't respond. She was staring at the carvings on the coffee table. They were no longer wrapped in newspaper, and they weren't in the same position we'd left them. The one with the red smear was now facing the door, its bent body angled as if it were walking toward it. I don't remember much after that. We didn't stay to find out what the man wanted. We grabbed our coats and ran out the back door, leaving everything behind. We made it to the car and drove as fast as we could back to the city. When we told the police, they went to check the cabin but didn't find anything. No carvings, no footprints, no sign anyone had been there. The rental company claimed we'd left early without explanation, and we've never been able to get in touch with them again. It's been a year, and I still think about that man, about what was in his sack, about the carvings and how they moved. I'll never spend Christmas in a remote cabin again.